Yeah, it's totally cool to start now, and the cat's had a certain aleatoric vibe that we can all appreciate. All right. Thanks, Sophia. Have a great class.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Alright, I'm gonna share my screen here. Alright, welcome to How to Write for Singers with me, Sofia Frohna. I am a singer and a composer. A couple weeks ago, I did a presentation on kind of my broad tips for learning how to sing as a beginner. So this is sort of the other side. This is how if you want to be a songwriter or a composer, or if you sing yourself and want to write for other singers, hopefully this will offer some broad tips because it's really important to know how to write for singers. They're not like all other instruments. All right, as I said, this applies to both composers and songwriters, even if you're writing a choral piece versus writing a little tune for your friend on guitar and you're going to play for them. It's going to apply to anyone because it's more about what you need to think about when writing for a singer rather than this is how you write an opera or this is how, you write a jazz tune. All right, so when you're writing for a solo singer, it's really important that you know their voice well. It's helpful if you're writing for a friend, coworker, family member, etc., even yourself. You can apply everything that I talk about in this presentation to yourself, but I'm generally going to be talking about it as if you are writing for a separate person. Familiarity with the voice is very important because every voice is different. Not every voice is going to be capable of doing the same things. Some voices, even if it's technically capable of performing a song, it's not going to have the same energy or gusto as another singer performing the same thing. Every voice is different, every voice has different capabilities, and every voice is really great at things that other voices might not be. So thinking about that, even if you don't know them personally, say you've been commissioned to write an opera for a group all across the country, or your friend of a friend says, hey, will you write this person a song? If you don't know them personally, listen to their music. Learn what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. Just by listening to someone's album, you can get a good idea of how to write for them well. So here are some things to keep in mind when listening to and writing for singers. All right, range. Range just has to do with what's the highest note they can sing and what's the lowest note. I don't know, I switched the hands. It's fine. Maybe this will be reversed. All right. So the range of a singer is important because if something is too high for them, they just won't be able to sing it. And if something is too low, they also won't be able to sing it. The way that singers work is that a lot of people can sing very high or very low, but at a certain point, their muscles are just going to stop producing sound. The range has to do with the length of people's vocal cords. So there's only so far I can go low. I can go like, and then it just stops, and it already sounds pretty ridiculous and low before I get to that point. So you don't want to write past these points and talk to the singers, if you're able to, about how comfortable they feel singing at the extremes of their range. So as you just heard, I sing really low, but I probably wouldn't want to sing anywhere in that range just because it sounds a little funny and I'm more comfortable singing high. So, the voice type does not equal range. So even though my range could go really low or super squeaky high, I wouldn't necessarily want to sing there. So think about that. You're saying, okay, what's going to be best for this singer? What's going to make them the most comfortable and expressive and what's going to feel good for them? So a lot of singers base how they like a song or how much they like a choir piece based on how good it feels to sing. So a choir piece could be technically amazing, but if it's boring to sing, they're not going to like it. Even if it's great to listen to, the experience of the singer is what they relate their opinion of the song to. So excuse me, it's a little bit early in the morning for me here on the West Coast. All right, yeah. So the voice type does not equal the range. Rather, it labels where they're most comfortable. So someone could be a bass if they sing very low and they're comfortable singing very low. They could have a higher range than where they sing most of the time, but if they have that really round, dark, deep tone, they're going to be a bass. A baritone is someone who could sing really low, but is a little bit more comfortable singing in the middle of their range, sort of the male voice, middle low area. Tenor is a guy who can sing pretty high. Once again, they could have a larger range than that. A lot of times tenors have pretty deep ranges because with high singers there's a bit of a rubber band effect. Someone who could sing very low could also sing very high just because it stretches. They're used to that muscle stretch. But if they're most comfortable singing high, they're a tenor. The alto is the low voice of female singers and soprano is high. I am technically a soprano. because I have a very high range, and when I sing solo, I like to sing really high up. It makes me feel very comfortable and free. But when I'm in choir, I like to sing alto because holding harmonies are fun. And once again, I can reach those notes. Doesn't mean I'm technically an alto just because I sing alto a lot. Technically soprano. It's a little bit confusing, but like I said, every voice is different. It's really important to talk to people. So someone who's writing for me might say, hey, I noticed you sing alto in choir and you speak on the lower range of your voice. Does that mean that I should write a low song for you? And I would say, I understand where you're coming from, but I would actually prefer to have something much higher than you might think. Because when I sing alone, I feel much more supported and comfortable singing in my higher range. So even if that doesn't totally make sense, talk to the people you're writing for, or get to know your own voice really well. It's really important. There we go. All right, another thing to think about is the head versus chest voice. These are two kind of placements of the voice. The chest voice is where we speak. If you put your hand on your chest and say, hi, this is my chest voice, you can feel it vibrating in your chest. Then the head voice is sort of more that Mickey Mouse space. They're like, oh, and it resonates in your head. When you hear opera singers, that's often using their head voice. And when you hear, say, a musical theater singer, they're usually using their chest voice. So this affects both the sound of the voice and the abilities of the singer. Certain singers are going to be able to use their chest voice really high and do this, powerful, and it sounds very strong and loud. Whereas other people are going to want to use their head voice most of the time, and it's going to have that really light, resonant effect. And some people's head voices can be really strong and loud, but only in the higher range, and it can be a little weaker in the lower range. So all this is to say, head versus chest voice, they're two different sounds, and it's important to be aware of where each singer's head and chest voice begins. Because as I said, the chest voice is often lower. It's where we speak. And if I'm going to use my head voice, it's going to sound a little bit more like this. And it sounds a little silly when I'm speaking, but it sounds great when you're singing. So it's important to know where each person's head voice begins. Every singer kind of has a passage point between the two, their lower voice and their upper head voice. So just be aware of where that is, because that's going to affect what kind of melodies they can sing. If you write a melody that crosses over that bridge, that passage point, it might be a little tough to navigate. So once again, just talk to your singer, or if you don't know them, or if you're just writing for an imaginary singer, listen to a lot of singers and say, okay, this seems to be where they switch into head voice versus chest voice. And if you're curious about how to tell the difference between the two, think chest voice is if you were talking and extending it into your singing voice, and the head voice is more that kind of opera Mickey Mouse range. All right, and another really, really important thing to think about when you're writing for a solo singer is what style do they like to sing? What personality they have? What is their stage presence? And it's really important to think about these things, because someone who loves to sing, kind of darker, jazzier songs might not be a great fit for your super happy pop song. Someone who sings musical theater might not totally grasp what it means to sing a country song. And that's not to say that singers should be bound to boxes. I just mean, think about what your singer's strengths are. And think about if they're a super happy person, maybe you want to write a super happy song, because they'll be great at expressing that. And if it's a shyer person, but you're okay with a little bit of a quiet, moody song, that might be a great song for that person. Like I said, it's all about the person. On a different note, when you're writing for groups, what you want to think about here is more about the ranges, the voice types, and sound quality. So if you're writing for a choir, you will often have basses, tenors, altos, and sopranos. So if you have 4 different voice types, 4 different ranges to kind of cover the full range of the human voice. And when you're thinking about these ranges, it's really important to say, okay, this is a super low note that I want in the choir sound, so you're going to give it to the basses. And if you have a super high note, you're not going to give it to the altos, you're going to give it to the sopranos, because they have the highest, lightest voices. There are some times where you can make creative decisions of saying, okay, I actually want the altos to take a solo line here that is slightly higher than the sopranos at the moment. But it's still important to not make them go way high up into the stratosphere, because they're not going to be able to do that. And they're not going to be super happy about having to sing something that they don't feel comfortable with. The thing about singers is that they know themselves, they know their voices, and if they feel like a composer or songwriter isn't writing properly for singers, it's going to frustrate them. They know what's good on their instrument. It's the same with any instrument. People always know their instrument more than you do. And even if you play the same instrument, they're going to know their own voice and their own style more than you do. So it's really important to write properly in ranges. So I definitely highly advise listening to choir music if you're interested in writing for groups. Some a cappella arrangements are super strong. You can find these all on YouTube, and I can include some links to include in the YouTube video version of this for reference, because the best thing to do as a composer or songwriter is listen and listen and listen and listen and see what's possible. Another great thing about writing for groups is that you don't have to worry so much about the specific quirks and challenges of writing for a singular person. So groups will kind of cover for the fact that people have this break between their head and their chest voice, or they'll kind of cover for the fact that not everyone is great at a specific style. I know, especially in choir music, some people are better at the more kind of modern gospel music style of choral music, while other people work better with the church motets from the 15th century. But when you're in a group, everyone's strengths and weaknesses kind of balances out, and it's really nice. And sometimes you get a group who's got a group expertise in a certain genre, but more often than not, you can write anything for a group, and it'll all balance out and sound great. All right, one of the great advantages of writing for singers is their ability to communicate emotion. A lot of instruments do this, but since it's the human voice, it often feels closer and more intimate to the actual emotion people are feeling. People understand the voice to be an expression of one's identity and one's kind of true inner self. So when you're writing for a singer, make sure to write down or communicate to them directly really clear expression when you want something to be quiet or loud, soft, emotional, angry, loving, all these different kinds of emotions. Singers are really, really good at communicating expressively. Take advantage of this. This is what they've been training for. They train almost as much as actors, like professional actors, to be able to express themselves. And not just on their face, but in their voice. So even if you're listening to an album, you know how someone's feeling. Isn't that amazing that you can listen to someone and just know exactly what's going on? Or at least with a really good performer, you know exactly what they want you to feel. It's really amazing how much sound can give information about how someone's feeling, even if they're not directly, crying or laughing. We still know so much from the voice. So definitely take advantage of this. And also be comfortable with the fact that your singer might take some creative license. They might make it more expressive at certain parts that you weren't planning on. And of course, as a songwriter or composer, you can say, okay, we can calm it down there. I don't want it to, get so emotional until, say, the last chorus. But you can also say, wow, it's amazing that this artist, singers are artists, it's amazing that this artist has taken what I've given them and really blossomed with it and really grown it into something even better than I could have imagined. There's something really special about working with singers. Even I, as a composer and singer, when I work with singers who are outside of myself, it's amazing what they can come up with that I could never, because I'm just one person, and there's so much magic that comes out of collaborating with people. So, an important tip. Singers are instruments and artists, but the voice doesn't work the same way as a piano does. You can't just press any notes and have that sound come out. Singers have to be able to hear the sound they have to sing in their head before they produce it and have to support themselves. I can't just play a scale in the same way that I would on a piano. I have to actually think about it and produce those sounds physically. So even if you're not going, okay, boop, this is your starting note, make sure that the singers have something to guide them, perhaps in the accompaniment or a note that's produced before, that allows them to feel comfortable and make sure they're singing the right note. And singers are really good at finding their note from a group of notes, but it's a lot easier to find, it's a lot easier to find something that's presented in a nice chord than it is to find a note out of, I can't tell if that's right. I mean, I can because I sang it before, but if you just offer, this is the start of your song, The singer's just gonna go, hey, I don't know where you want me to start. Can you perhaps help me out a little more? Or, if you want this to be your starting note, but you want this sound really badly to be the beginning of your composition, maybe quietly play this note alone before the piece starts, and they can have that in their head. And then you can go into your whole weird, and they'll be able to have that starting note of because you gave it to them beforehand. All right, another note, similar to the idea of singers aren't just buttons that you can press and produce notes. Don't jump around. You don't want a melody that goes like that. The singer's not going to be capable of that. One, because changing notes in the voice is actually stretching the vocal cords different lengths. So if you have a crazy jump like or something like that, it's really hard to navigate that. My voice didn't even want to do it, even though I knew where I was going. You could hear it. My voice was just like, one, that's a crazy range, and I'm not ready to make that jump because that's a huge stretch. But also, it's hard to hear those changes because we relate, as singers, we relate what something sounds like to how it feels to sing. So a crazy jump is not going to be something that's easy to navigate, both for mental reasons and physical reasons. Singers love lyrical lines. They love these beautiful lines that stay within a certain range from note to note. So you can make dramatic jumps, but just make sure it makes sense in the context of the piece. Okay. Oh, sorry, my slides are being weird. Oh, I thought I had one more, but I do not. All right, so as I've said a couple times throughout this presentation, the most important thing about writing for singers is acknowledging that singers are individual people and that every instrument is different. Of course, every guitar, every clarinet is going to be a little different, but it varies drastically with singers. Singers are so unique that it's hard to mix this up. As soon as you hear a singer that you know exactly who it is. It's, difficult to mix up Lady Gaga's voice with Adele's voice because they sound so different, even though they're both kind of women in their 20s, 30s. They have a lot in common, but at the same time, the genres they choose and the quality of their voice is so different that we know exactly who they are the second they start singing. When you hear a friend's voice from down the hallway, even if they're not singing, just speaking, you know exactly who they are. And this is something you can really take advantage of. You can say, okay, I know my friend Billy would sing this really well, or I know my friend Laura would sing this song really well, or wouldn't it be cool if they sounded great together? Or, you have two other friends who might not sound as good together in the same way. It's all about the people you know and the people you listen to. And I know it might sound a little daunting to have to get to know each singer really intimately to be able to write well for them, but I promise it's going to make you a stronger songwriter and composer. It's something that I've had to learn that lesson over and over again, because sometimes I'll just write for myself. I'm a singer, why wouldn't I just write something that I could sing? That's what comes out of me naturally. And then I get to the session with the singer where they have to sing what I wrote, and they say, this doesn't fit my voice as well, and I kind of feel like it doesn't feel that good to sing for me, and I feel like I can't perform it as well as you want me to. And it's not because I did a bad job or that they're not a good singer, it's because I wrote for myself instead of writing for them. Even though, in the case I'm thinking about a couple weeks ago, I wrote for a soprano, and since I'm also a soprano, I thought, this will be super easy for this person. But it's more than voice type, it's more than range. It's about what they're comfortable technically doing because of the quality of their voice. And the soprano who I wrote for said, hey, I can kind of tell that you wrote this for yourself because it goes a little lower than one might usually write for soprano. And I would prefer to not do that. It's possible, but it feels a little awkward for me. The same thing that feels comfortable for you feels bad for me. So I said, okay, let's change it. What would feel good for you? And these are the kind of decisions and sacrifices that you sometimes have to make as a composer, because we're writing for real people in the world, and we want to make people feel good and comfortable, and also to let them know that we know what we're doing. That's an important part of composing, is that you want the instrumentalist to trust you, or the vocalist to trust you, because then they'll want to work with you again. They'll go, this person wrote a really great piece for my voice, or really great piece for my group that made sense for all the different vocal types. Um, so if you want to do this, both for fun and professionally, it's great to make connections with people. And one of the ways to do that is to just be smart about what you're writing. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me, I suppose, anytime, or leave comments on the video version of this. I'll be watching. That's all I have today on how to write for singers. Oops. Okay, cool. I want to shut up, so I think I'm going to stop this. Goodbye.